Coming up on The Breakdown, corporations are donating to officials that denied the 2020 election results again. We're calling them out with Judd Legum, the author of the political newsletter Popular Information. Plus, Trump rears his ugly head in Ohio. We'll premiere the latest Lincoln Project ad. Plus, Rick Wilson will attempt to predict the future. It all starts now on The Breakdown.
Hey, I'm Rick Wilson. Welcome to The Breakdown. This is a Pim's Cup, the official drink of summer. To back quote Petey Pablo, they do not pay me for it, but it is delicious. So, wanted to welcome everybody to the show tonight. My co-host and good friend Tara Setmeyer is on vacation this week, but we've got Judd Legum joining us on the show tonight, and it is going to be a lot of fun. May or may not be wearing pants. We will probably be interrupted by dogs. But before we get started, if you have a question for us, tweet it using the hashtag AskTheBreakdown. We'll answer your questions later on in the show. Plus, our voicemail system is up and running again. You can call us and leave a message at 855-518-1582. You just might hear your voice on the show. Now, let's get on to the headlines for the day. First off, the January 6th Commission. Nancy Pelosi has decided to launch a select committee, be kicking into gear very soon. I am delighted by this news, and I have a few recommendations for how they should proceed. First off, she's introduced the bill on I told you the dogs would interrupt us. My daughter is here, and her dogs are mouthy and chatty, and they don't like the FedEx guy who pulls up in my driveway at 7 or 8 o'clock at night. But anyway, sorry, folks. Look, Republicans were offered every possible opportunity to be involved in this operation, and they chose not to. Guys, I'm sorry, it's live, and it's real, and those are dogs. There are so many of them. They're howling now. Just hang on for a sec, y'all. Really? Really? They can go on forever. I'll be right back. What in the hell? All of you, cut it out. Cut it out. Who's the culprit here?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
And to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for Trump.
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Well, guys, sorry to have interrupted the show this evening, but the dogs are being a-holes. This is Marley, my daughter's dog, who is the ringleader of Team A-hole, right? All right, go cause trouble. All right, meanwhile, back at the ranch, so Pelosi has formed a special committee. Sorry, guys, it's live, and it's just our experiment with how we're going to do these things. She's introduced the bill on Monday. It'll be mostly Democrats. Republicans were invited to be involved in a substantive way. They chose not to be. Back to the reference to Team Asshole. They decided to not do that. I have a few recommendations for how the committee ought to be run. And they should look back and take the example of the Republicans' Benghazi committee and absolutely follow it to the nut. They should be out there every day grinding through witnesses. They should hold this thing up. They should drag it out. Republicans had something like 800 hours of testimony regarding Benghazi, even after it was determined to have largely been a horrible set of mistakes that no one could have changed or done anything about. But they tried to turn it into this massive drama. And the Democrats should take a lesson from that. You know why it worked for Republicans? Because it distracted from their complete lack of specificity on anything else. And it helped nationalize the Republicans against the Democrats and against Hillary Clinton. It put immediate pressure on Hillary Clinton. This is an opportunity to drag people like Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz and Ron Johnson, the rest of the sedition caucus from the Senate and in the House, to a witness table and make them raise their hand and make them plead the fifth and make them face what they did on that day. I want to know if Lauren Boebert's staff did a tour guide job for the 3%ers that day. I want to know, who was calling whom from the White House. I want to know these things because it's important that we get this information. It's important that we drill down and understand what happened on the 6th and hold people accountable. Now, a lot of Republicans will say, oh, a special committee doesn't mean anything. A select committee doesn't mean anything. Well, let me tell you what. If it didn't mean anything, why are they so pissed off? If it doesn't mean anything, why are they so scared of it? So the Democrats, I hope, will use this as an opportunity to blow through the fake degree of comity that the Republicans will say, how dare you call Josh Hawley? How dare you call Lauren Boebert? How dare you call these other people that are accused of having coordinated with and spoken to people in the White House about the January 6th invasion of the Capitol? I think this is a vital thing to take seriously. Don't be afraid to call Republicans who are in Congress up to the table. Secondly, don't be afraid to call every goddamn member of the Trump administration from dog catcher on up. These folks had a role to play that day. They were all involved. They were on at that tent. There's a conspiracy afoot. They knew what was happening. They stayed silent. They encouraged it. They made it a big issue. They knew it was going to happen. Finally, they need to drag front and center, even though they're going to resist this. They're going to say, oh, no, we don't want a circus. They need that degenerate septuagenarian fop, Roger Stone, on the stand. They need Ali Akbar or Ali Alexander or whatever scam name he's running this year. He was also a Stop the Steal person. They need Alex Jones, who said he talked to the president about this. These people will cause an enormous blow up on television. It will be a huge thing. And Democrats will argue to themselves, oh, no, we shouldn't do that. That's going to give them what they want, which is attention and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. You need to show who was behind this crap. Now, finally, they need to call some ordinary witnesses. And by ordinary witnesses, I mean to say Capitol cops. They need to call many of the people who've been arrested or who were known to be invading the Capitol that day, because you'll hear it out of their own lips. They'll say, I thought Donald Trump wanted me to go there and invade the Capitol. I thought Donald Trump, if I went there, it would overturn the election results. That is a damning indictment. And many of those names that we've known and seen on all these arrests of these folks, they're going to tell a story of why and how they were motivated. And why and how they were motivated was Donald Trump chose to motivate them, sent them there. They went into that Capitol building, and but for the grace of God or whatever force of providence you believe in, did not end up with a bloodbath. Those people, if they had found Nancy Pelosi, would have killed her. Those people, if they'd found Mitch McConnell, Mitch, by the way, they would have killed you too. They believe in nothing but Donald Trump, and he knew that. He understood what he was doing that day. Now, speaking of Donald Trump, he has slithered out of his hole in Mar-a-Lago, and he traveled up this weekend to Ohio, Wellington, Ohio, in fact, this weekend on the 26th. And he went after, his little revenge tour is starting. He went after Representative Anthony Gonzalez. He literally called it a revenge tour, folks. Anthony Gonzalez is one of the few Republicans, one of the 11 to vote against certifying his reelection. He was all full on into his grievance catalog, which he loves. He did selfies. There were selfies taken with Mike Lindell there, which of course, who doesn't want a selfie with Mike Lindell except humans? Got into the whole lock her up chant. Ironically, lock her up and Marjorie Taylor Greene, something really important at this event. And it's easy to make fun of her, but she really does represent a window into who the Republicans are, okay, and what they believe today. She is a perfect exemplar of what they've become. Not about policy, it's about owning the libs and bashing the media and living in this conspiracy bubble. And she was out there and she said, "Who's your real president?" And the audience just went bonkers. Trump, Trump, Trump. You know, this reality bubble, she's a perfect example of it. It's important to take people like that literally at the least. And you ought to take them seriously as well. Because as much as she can be a sort of figure of fun for us, she's also a dangerous individual and has a broad following and represents, again, what the Republican Party has become. And if the Republicans win the majority back in the House in the fall of 22, which is not impossible, guys, by the way, for a lot of reasons. It's not even close to impossible. In fact, it's likely based on history and redistricting. You might even think that Marjorie Taylor Greene's a marginal figure. She could be speaker. And I'm not kidding. There are more crazies than there are Kevin McCarthy's, by far. Anyway, there was also one final feature at this shit show of a rally. And look, while it is important to remember that Donald Trump has a high hill to climb when it comes to reality, he still manages to get more people to come out to a rally than damn near anybody else in American politics could do. Okay, let me tell you, getting people at a rally is not easy stuff. Advanced guys will tell you. But the craziest feature was this math teacher from Cincinnati named Doug Frank, who, and I know you, when I go to a rally, I know there's nothing I want to see more than a PowerPoint presentation. But this guy did a PowerPoint presentation about the election fraud that has prevented Donald Trump from taking office again. And, before we leave this topic, I want to say one more thing. There was a really chilling set of interviews this weekend. You've seen them floating around by now, I'm sure, where they were talking to people in the crowd and they said, when is Trump going back into office? And they're all, it's in early August. He'll be back in the White House in early August. And one guy said something really telling. Something really, really telling. He said, and if not, we'll be in a civil war and our militia will be out. Threatening civil war and threatening to bring out your militia is probably not your first line of trying to get Donald Trump back in office, but you do you. Anyway, let's move on to one of my other favorite topics, the shimmering genius of Ivanka Trump. She is probably going to be facing a little heat because, as it turns out, she's inherited the family tendency to grift. They put a massive piece out this weekend that showed that her testimony on the inauguration investigation was completely inaccurate, or not completely, but largely. She gave sworn testimony that she was, not involved in the inauguration except to give advice, except, of course, the reality was she was. So Ivanka may be in a little bit of shit, and no one could deserve it more. And by the way, Ivanka, as I pointed out before, you're never going to the Met Ball again. So our next guest is somebody that is beloved by Lincoln Project TV viewers, and he has been calling attention to the bad actors and breaking down the political headlines for readers every week. Judd Legum will join us next. We'll take a quick break and be right back.
With 135,000 Americans dead and our economy on the edge of a new Great Depression, Ivanka Trump has some advice.
Find something new.
Oh, of course. Why didn't we think of that? It's so simple. How about jewelry design? Have Daddy loan you a few million to get started. Or fashion. Once you get millions in Chinese patents and trademarks, cha-ching. You can even get a job in the White House. Just ask Daddy. The important thing is to find something new. I mean, who cares if you're about to be evicted, or lose your health care, or can't make ends meet? Find something new. Can't feed your kids? Let them eat cake. Ivanka is right about one thing. This November, we will find something new, and it won't be her daddy.
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Well, they're burning the house down.
Please protect yourself.
Vice President speaking.
This is an embarrassment. If you count the legal votes, I easily win.
What the fuck?
Have some faith, I'll make you a believer.
Welcome back to The Breakdown, folks. Our guest tonight is Judd Legum, author of the political newsletter and analysis piece, Popular Information. It is a fantastic read. Hope you'll subscribe to it. We'll throw some information up on it toward the end of the interview. Hey, Judd. So big name corporations are already back to bankrolling the insurrectionists. So I just wanted to run through that with you. And you know, a lot of these big companies that all said they weren't going to do it came out after a few weeks and slithered out of the tall grass, and now they're donating at a pace that's similar or greater than before, right?
Well, I think it's the case for some of them. You've got a couple of different categories. You've got some corporations like Toyota who had put their giving on pause, said that they were going to reevaluate everything. They've now given to 39 separate Republicans who voted to overturn the election on January 6th. Then you got another category, which is actually larger at this point, of companies that said they weren't going to give to any of these 147 Republicans, still maintain that that's their current position, but at the same time, they're donating to the NRCC, which is supporting all the Republicans in the House, or the NRSC, which is supporting all. So there really a lot of money really still is flowing from these companies. They may technically be arguing that this is not a violation of their pledge, but it certainly violates the spirit of it, the idea that you weren't going to fund these politicians anymore. So I think there's a lot of that going on too.
So I think that's something that's important for folks to understand is, so when Citibank or Google or Toyota decides that they want to keep supporting the Republican Party, they're not giving the money directly to Marjorie Taylor Greene. But what they are doing is giving it to the committee that will help reelect Marjorie Taylor Greene. And I think it's important to understand.
I mean, well, for Toyota, just to be clear, for Toyota, they are giving not to Marjorie Taylor Greene, but to a bunch of these Republicans who voted to overturn the election, including Andy Biggs, who is one of the most bombastic,
egregious. Oh God, he's a
people.
Total.
But then there's the sort of more moderate approach at this point, if you will, on behalf of corporations is to fund these multi-candidate committees that are ultimately going to seek to get all the same people elected.
So speaking of that, I mean, we're seeing right now, you've reported that the number one funder right now, the number one funder of the Republicans, they way out above the rest of the field, is Toyota. Were you surprised that a company like Toyota was suddenly so far in the lead in terms of getting back on the sedition finance train?
Yeah, I mean, certainly just in terms of raw numbers, there's a few, JetBlue has given to one Republican who voted to overturn the election. There's a few that have given to a handful, but just as far as giving to dozens and dozens, they definitely stick out. I am surprised. I'm not really sure why, and I don't know if anyone's really gotten that answer from them. If you look at their explanation, it comes directly from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, who in March, in a reversal, said that they no longer believed it was appropriate to withhold funds just based on the January 6th vote. That's what Toyota is saying. So it's clear they're working with the Chamber of Commerce on this.
Agreed. And I mean, and Ted Ogawa, who is the head of Toyota North America, I'm sure he is doing what a lot of these other companies have done, and that's to listen to their government affairs division, and they tell them, hey, listen, if you don't help these guys out, they could hurt us, they could do bad things to us, they could cause us all this trouble. And what I don't think most people recognize is that one of Toyota's lead lobbyists, and it's a little bit inside baseball for folks watching, is a guy named Kyle Simmons. Can we bring up a picture of Kyle? I think we have that I think the production crew has that. And Kyle Simmons, folks, you're going to be shocked to hear that Kyle's old job was Mitch McConnell's chief of staff. I mean, this should show you a little bit about how incestuous Washington is in the business of lobbying, because when you get somebody who is his former chief of staff calling you and saying, hey, you've hired us for a reason, we need you to do X, Y, and Z, it sends a clear message. So Kyle Simmons is not very famous right now, but he's one of the people that's engineering this. You're right, Judd, the Chamber's definitely engineering a lot of this. And there are a lot of other big companies. Can you give us some of the other companies that have been rolling in here and sort of reversing their position on this?
AT&T, and these are companies that have, most of them are donating to the committees, to the multi-candidate committees. AT&T is one who's given to the committees. Cigna is one who said that they wouldn't give to anyone who was responsible for undermining the democratic process, then also now has started giving to individual members of Congress who voted against it and said that, well, the vote itself wasn't against that. So Cigna is another one, and they have perhaps the most creative explanation for why they are doing so. We're going to learn it'll be interesting, because a lot of the first trough of information we got was April 15th. That was when the first quarter was due. And it was really only Toyota that we saw kind of stick out then. And then we've seen the NRCC, these committees, they file every month. So we have a little bit more of a sense of who's giving to the committees. It'll be really interesting coming up just in a couple of weeks, July 15th. We're going to get another big dump of information, because every single member of Congress is going to have to report again. And now we have a little more space between January 6th and now. I mean, the first quarter actually encompassed literally the date of January 6th. So you really had to go January 6th, really turn around pretty quickly to show up, because even though it was April 15th, it only covered through the end of March. Now we're finally going to get through the end of June, and it'll be interesting to see which companies are having. I know there is, as you were mentioning, a lot of pressure. The Wall Street Journal's reported this. I've seen emails documenting this. There are lobbyists out there telling, there are members of Congress, their staffs out there telling lobbyists they will no longer get meetings unless they continue to donate, that if they continue to withhold funds, they're going to be cut off. And so, there's a push and pull both ways here.
Yeah, that transactional nature of Washington is something people sort of intuitively understand. But this is going to be a phenomenal example of that at scale, because the Republicans are also leveraging the perception in Washington that they're going to take the majority. So they're scaring the crap out of these people, saying, hey, when I'm a chairman again of a committee, good luck. So
yeah,
it's
and that's why
definitely
you see Northrop Grumman, you see Lockheed, as
Boeing.
far as the Boeing, as far as the companies that are not only giving now to individuals, but also the multi-candidate committees, because they believe, and maybe they're right, maybe they won't. We'll have to see in 18 months that Kevin McCarthy could be the next Speaker of the House, and that's much more important to them at this point than whatever PR work they were trying to accomplish around January 6th by saying that they were going to suspend their donations.
Right. I think it's definitely one of the things that is going to be, when we go back through history, people are going to look back at this and say, that's how Washington worked at that moment. And to a degree, it's how Washington has worked for a long time, but it will not look good. It's not going to be a good look in the end. So.
Yeah, and there's some, and to be fair, there's some companies who have still maintained strong. American Express, Microsoft, a bunch of them, who have stayed, and at least for 6 months, we don't have any evidence that they backed up. So we're going to see what happens. If they could make it 2 years, that would be quite something. We'll see. We'll have to keep. That's why I'm going to keep a close eye on these things.
It's the tyranny of the government affairs office, my friend. All right. Let's get on to our next segment here. Folks, as on most evenings, I just riff all this shit. Tonight, I'm doing it with a little bit of teleprompter help. I'm not going to lie. We're going to be back from a short break. We'll continue our conversation with Judd Legum. Stick around. We'll be right back.
I am proud to lead my colleagues in filing a bill to censure President Joe Biden.
We live clean lives, Sean, and every single day we're attacked by political hacks. Every single day they come after us and they subpoena us and they try and find a comma that's out of place. But this guy can go sleep with hookers.
He had a picture of his manhood and multiple M&M candies stacked along it. Just some really weird stuff.
Why do we laugh at Alex Jones again? Sincere question.
A few minutes ago, my father's law license was suspended. This is unacceptable. I stand by my father. He did everything ultimately by the book.
We're also thrilled to be joined by a person who's actually loved. You don't necessarily hear that. But she's loved and respected, and she's tough and smart and kind. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene.
He's not just a pig, he's stupid.
Whether you're a woman, you're LGBTQ, XYZ, whatever.
What happens to all these people who are responsible for overthrowing the election? In the past, America had a very good solution for dealing with such traitors: execution.
If you care about law and order,
Welcome back to The Breakdown. We are here with Judd Legum, author and creator of the political newsletter Popular Information. Hey, Judd, this week you wrote a piece about critical race theory. Now, can you break this down for our audience? Because no one on the right can define critical race theory, but they are certainly putting it to work for the 2022 election cycle, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be probably the top thing you're going to hear virtually every Republican candidate across the country talk about between now and November 2022, or at least it's looking that way. It's on Fox News pretty much 24 hours a day. It's really an academic theory that's been around since the 80s. I actually was first exposed to it when I was in law school about 20 years ago. And it looks at the causes of structural racism. So looking at, there's a disparity between the number of Black Americans who are in the country, about 12%, and the number of Black Americans who are in jail, about a third of the incarcerated population. So it looks at the law and says, why is this? What are the Supreme Court decisions? What are the cases? How is the whole system set up that allows this to happen? And it looks at that across a whole range of different kinds of outcomes, from health to education. And there's a lot of disagreement even within the field, but it's been around for quite some time. We really have seen this, though, get raised into the political spectrum in the last really few months. 2021 is really when it has started to explode. And it's really been applied to something that it really isn't, which is some of this corporate diversity training where they gather a bunch of people in a room. I guess pre-COVID, maybe they're all on Zoom now, with COVID, and they're telling people to, be considerate about people from different backgrounds and things like that. Doesn't actually have much to do with critical race theory, but you're able to use some misguided extreme versions of that kind of diversity training or cultural sensitivity training, or the application of that in different schools. There's a lot of different schools. Clearly, some of them probably are doing it better than others. And using that to kind of gin up a lot of fear that this is a whole effort to oppress white people, and everyone's going to get brought down, and life as we know it is going to be over. So it's a lot of smoke. There's not, when it all clears, there's not much there, but we're going to be hearing a lot about it.
I think the most important way to look at it is that Democrats think that campaigns are about policy these days, and Republicans think that they're about culture. And the Republican cultural outrage machine is loving critical race theory for a number of reasons. We had that tweet up by Chris Rufo a minute ago, who was he said the quiet part loud. What they're doing is using this as a racially charged wedge into white voters to tell them, be outraged again, be mad again. You're being hurt by this imaginary tidal wave of benefit to African Americans by the imposition of critical race theory, whatever that means. And so they filled it up as it could be anything. It could be reparations. It could be socialism. It could be any number of imagined outrages and hypothetical demons in their minds that are useful politically. And that's the important thing, I think, is the Republicans are running this as a culture war platform. And that's where the terrain is going to be in the 2022 election.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that, Rufo, who's really one of the people who is leading this, one of the things that I'm very interested in, and that I'm going to be reporting on in my newsletter in the coming weeks, is the money behind this and the really rich network of people who are systematically pushing this into our politics and making it from something that no one's ever heard of to this top issue. But he's been very clear that this is really just a replacement for some of the other issues. Cancel culture is not working out now, and political correctness is sort of old news. That was more of like a 90s thing. And so now this sounds a lot more sinister. Right. The complexity and the fact that it's something that's difficult to explain on a program like this in a couple of minutes, that to try to explain, okay, well, what's this kind of complicated legal field of study? That's a feature of it. Because no one's ever going to really, they're not really ever going to have to explain what it is that they're doing. And I think they'd certainly rather talk about that than where the party is politically, which is still extremely beholden to Trump, caught up in relitigating the 2020 election. This is much safer ground. It's made up, but it's much safer ground for them to have a debate on. They'd rather get in the mud on this
and look,
than something else.
The underpinning of this should ring a lot of bells. Why was there a panic about Black Lives Matter last year? Well, I'll give everybody a clue for the Republican leadership and the political consultants doing it. The first word is the clue. And why were they so in a panic about these imaginary caravans that were going to sweep America with millions of illegal immigrants? There's a racial charge underneath all these things. There's a racial animus underneath all these things that people should understand it, but they also need to understand there's a lot of America for whom this works. There's a lot of America who believes this crap. There are a lot of Americans who believe anything they see on the Fox machine, including things like, Tucker Carlson saying the NSA is after him. But on the same hand, he's out there, screaming about critical race theory, even though he wouldn't know what it meant if you put a gun to his head. So.
Yeah, and I think that when you get down to some of the things that you would need to do, like when you talk about some of the actual programs that, okay, well, maybe in order to have a more equitable society, we need to change our tax code, or we need to have a better safety net. The things that are popular, that's not advantageous for them politically to discuss. So it needs to be wrapped into something. You're not going to fear raising Jeff Bezos' tax rate from 0 to whatever it might be raised if Biden's tax program went through. Probably not that much, but maybe it would be less than 0. That's not going to get you very far. But if you say that the whole effort is about, imposing critical race theory, well, to lift up oppressed groups, well, then that is something that has a lot more carry for you politically. And I think, clearly that's what they're going to be going on, and hope to discuss those kind of cultural issues, for the next 18 months.
For sure. And I think, as we mentioned, Chris Rufo, the Manhattan Institute has really been pushing this, and I think he's a member, or he's a fellow there or something like that. But I think we do need to follow the money on this, and there is nobody better than doing it. Financial mechanism of this moment we're in, of this authoritarian nationalism and Trumpism, how it functions. And I'm very grateful for your knowledge on this and for coming on the show tonight.
Oh, I really appreciate it. And this one will keep me very busy, because it's a lot more complicated than figuring out who's behind the members of Congress who voted to overturn the election on January 6th. But I'll stay up.
Well, thank you, brother. And folks, as a call to action tonight, you should definitely subscribe to Judd's newsletter. It's called Popular Information, and you can get it on Google. You'll find it there, and you can rely on Judd to provide some really cutting insights into how the money's going, where things are happening, etc. So, Judd, thank you so much for joining us today, and we will talk to you again soon, my friend.
Thanks a lot, Rick.
Have a great night. All right. So he's so smart. He knows this stuff like backward and forward. Once again, the Pimm's Cup is a delicious summer drink, and I recommend it. We love hearing from you folks, so send us your questions on Twitter or Facebook, if you must, using the hashtag #AskTheBreakdown, and we may just get to your question on the show, and I'm going to answer some right now. All right. Since the bipartisan January 6th committee was voted down, why does Kevin McCarthy get to appoint members to the select committee? In part, this is because Washington is a company town. And it's, even though the Democrats know these people are seditionists who would burn them down and kill them, they still behave as if they were, that there was some standard Republican Party out there in the weeds waiting to be heard. He is going to get to name some people to the committee. Now, he could have named more. He could have been in the whole fight. But, this is something Democrats have to understand. The revolutionary nature of the current Republican Party still is cloaked in the old camouflage of the GOP that the Democrats once knew. And they pretend that it's the same thing that it used to be. They pretend it's not any different. Oh, we're not really trying to burn down the government. We're not really trying to overthrow a democratic election. We're not really invading and shitting on the floor of the Capitol and trying to stop the certification of the vote. All those things. It's easy to have the normalcy bias that Kevin McCarthy is the same guy Nancy Pelosi's known for 20 years. He's not. He's changed. They've all changed. They've adopted, as I said, a revolutionary pose that is dangerous for this country, and they shouldn't treat him that way. All right, let's do another Twitter question. Can you please explain how the Trumpian idea of masculinity and the constant whining go together? There's nothing less sexy and masculine than this never-ending complaining. That is from Linda Brooke. Linda, you could not be more right. I have never met a bigger bunch of whiny baby bitch snowflake titty mamas than these MAGAs. They are the worst possible complainers in the world. They bitch about cancel culture and they run screaming if you criticize them. They beat their chests, and the minute you say something about them that they're rubes or that they're slow or they suffer from indifferent educations or chronic erectile dysfunction, they lose their goddamn minds. They are the most delicate, crystalline little flowers you'd ever hope to meet in your life. And it really is something that I've seen it over and over again. You know, when Eagle Man 9724755, if he's not in Russia, says, I can't reveal my real identity because I'll get canceled at work, it's not a sign of a confident political movement. It's a sign of people who are caught up in this little game of playing I'm the most oppressed and oh, isn't my life difficult because I'm a white suburban upper income guy. Now you're trying to oppress me. Trust me, you guys, you're doing fine. But that is why the dichotomy is so wide, is because they are not strong people. They're really very, very weak people. They are impotent people. They are people without the guts to really stand up for something beyond, generally speaking, anonymity. And it's like, look, one of the biggest loudmouths in the new right world right now is a guy who would die if you said his name on the air. And a lot of them are that way. And it's unsurprising because they know that their opinions, their ideas, and their positions are profoundly unpopular. And they want to convert that unpopularity into the belief that it's some sort of planned oppression against them. It's not. They're just dicks. All right, let's do a voicemail. We got a voicemail? Fire it up.
Hi, Lincoln Project. This is Robert from Northern Virginia. I've been with you guys since the beginning and intend to stay with you to the end, whenever that is. Love your work, and that's an understatement. In any case, talking about the former President Trump, I wonder whether he truly is delusional or if this is a cynical attempt to sort of rile up the millions that are his base.
That is a fantastic question, and I'll tell you why it's such a great question. Donald Trump is not a smart man in many ways. However, he has an almost unique insight into how to manipulate people. He has a degree of feral cunning that is almost unparalleled in American political history. He makes Nixon look like a piker on this stuff, okay? He is a man who understands how to bring out the very worst in everyone, how to bring out the darkest side of everyone, how to play to their weaknesses, their vanities, their foolhardiness, their greed, their desire for power and approval. He understands those things at a level that is so instinctive and so perceptive that we should never underestimate it. Why is he doing this? He is doing this to give them yet another apocalypse to complain about. Because when he's not in the White House in August, it will not be that, in their minds, it will not be that Donald Trump is an absurd fantasist, a man who suffers from verbal dysentery when it comes to lying. It will be because the deep state and the big media and the evil Lincoln Project and the Never Trump movement somehow maneuvered the system to prevent him from returning to his rightful throne. Well, his rightful throne is a gold toilet in Mar-a-Lago. It is not sitting behind the Resolute desk in the Oval Office. But this is a guy who knows that he has to keep that machine of his stoked. He has to keep it grinding along. He has to keep the boil just underneath the part where it runs up from over the edge of the pot. Okay? Donald Trump wants that machine angry. He wants those voters angry. He wants to take them into 2022 and 2024. He is the Republican front runner for 2024. Keep that in mind. Even though Ron DeSantis is leading him in some polls, and by the way, since you guys at the RNC still have somebody watching this show, even though it's just our little web show, Donald Trump will eventually hear it that Ron DeSantis is beating him in some state polls. See how long that lasts for you, Ron. Anyway, so that was a terrific question, and so just know that it's a deliberate play. It is a deliberate play. He knows he's not going to be in the White House in August. He may be delusional about many things. And he's delusional about a lot of things. Like he's delusional about his accomplishments. He's delusional about how, his wealth. He's delusional about the degree to which America universally loves him. He's delusional about the number of orgasms he's ever provided a woman in his life. He's got a lot of delusions, but this isn't one of them. All right. We have a preview of the latest episode of the Lincoln Project podcast featuring political consultant Trygve Olsen. Trygve is a great friend. He is one of the most brilliant people I know in fighting back against oppression and authoritarianism. Let's take a look.
During World War II, Churchill and Roosevelt made a decision to be in an alliance with Joseph Stalin. They shared nothing in common beyond the fact that fascism had to be fought. The mistake the Democrats have been making to a large degree is they're tending to pile on when people within the Republican side are standing up. If you're a Democrat and you share nothing with Liz Cheney, you're still on the same team. And you have to do everything you can to help them. And sometimes that means keeping your mouth shut.
I am telling you, folks, that is a hell of a podcast. And Trygve is an absolute genius when it comes to analyzing and understanding what authoritarianism is and where it comes from and how easily it slips into a society and how dangerous it is when it does. Hey, folks, we're going to take another quick break, after which I'm going to predict the future. And we'll premiere the newest Lincoln Project ad. You don't want to miss it. So be back in just a minute.
January 6th was a dark day in the history of the United States Capitol. There's almost no idea more un-American than the notion that any one person could choose the American president. The presidency belongs to the American people and the American people alone. Now, I understand the disappointment many feel about the last election, but there's more at stake than our party and our political fortunes in this moment. If we lose faith in the Constitution, we won't just lose elections. We'll lose our country. I never felt better in my life.
Hey, welcome back to The Breakdown. I am actually notoriously good at predicting the future. In fact, I'm fucking sick of always being right. It's a problem we've had at the Lincoln Project at the beginning. So now we're going to have an episode of what we're going to call Rickstradamus. I did not know that graphic was coming, and that is fantastic. We're putting a shirt on. We're doing a shirt on that one. All right. In this segment, I'm going to make a prediction. In a couple of weeks, we're going to revisit it to see whether I was right, wrong, or just too soon to tell. So let's get started. They asked me to predict, will Trump get charged by the Manhattan District Attorney? The answer is probably. However, the prediction does not go much further than that because I think this case will drag and drag and drag, and they will grind this thing down for 1,000,000 years until the election season starts, and then the Southern District and the Manhattan District Attorney will get scared the politics are stepping on it, etc. I wanted to get indicted and charged. I think he will be, but I think it's going to be a while before we get any results out of it. So before we go tonight, we have a very special premiere. We have got an exclusive look at the Lincoln Project's latest ad.
My relationship with this gentleman is outstanding.
Does Mitch call the shots now, Donald? Yes, he does. He says he runs the Republican Party. The party you built.
Excuse me.
He's the boss now. He's even taking shots at you.
A mob was assaulting the Capitol in his name.
When did Mitch overpower you?
Maybe I'll have to leave the country. I don't know.
No power. He doesn't care what you think of candidates. He's in charge.
We were winning everything.
He'll pick them himself. No control.
And all of a sudden it was just called off.
And they'll be loyal to Mitch. You can't beat him. Not you.
Our weak Republican leadership.
Is this still your party or not? You can't keep up. You're losing your base. They've forgotten you. They're calling you Mitch's cuck. He's stronger than... If you don't do something soon, loser, you can kiss 2024 goodbye.
McConnell is hopeless, and he can't stop anything.
If you think we had fun making that ad, you would be correct. And there's a serious nature to this thing, guys. One of the things that we do at the Lincoln Project is we divide the base of the Republican Party, which is the Trump base, from the mainstream of the Republican Party, which Mitch McConnell is desperate to recruit mainstream candidates for 2022. He needs to recruit people who don't, believe that the world is run by a secret underground lizard alien cabal of cannibal sex child predators. He needs to recruit people who aren't QAnon nutcases. He needs to recruit people who aren't the Senate equivalent of Marjorie Taylor Greene or Matt Gaetz or any of these other cuckoos. He needs to recruit people who are straight up the middle. Now, to do that, he needs Trump to get out of the way, because a lot of the people McConnell wants to have in power or on the ballot are not the same people that Donald Trump would be comfortable with. A lot of them will have opposed Trump in these purple states. A lot of them will not be perfect and pure in their love of Donald Trump. And you got to be perfect and pure with the dear leader to retain his favor and his love. So it is going to be a hell of a challenge, but that's the kind of ad that we do. A lot of people ask us about our ad strategy. And I will say this, there are ads that are just plain psychological warfare. They're for small audiences, an audience, in fact, in this case, of one. We want Donald Trump to be reminded that Mitch McConnell is fucking with him. We want Donald Trump to be reminded every day that Mitch McConnell hates him with the fire of a billion suns, and that Mitch McConnell is backed by the most powerful people in Washington who want to forget Donald Trump and make Donald Trump go away. I mean, his number one advisor is the most powerful Republican consultant in the world. His name is Josh Holmes, and Josh Holmes is Mitch McConnell's lead agent in breaking down Donald Trump and trying to eliminate Donald Trump, and it's working with a lot of people. So when Mitch McConnell and Josh Holmes are out there pushing a Trump-free Republican Party, we're going to be sure to remind the Republican Party that's what they want, and remind Trump that's what they want. So Trump will go back at them and have things to say about it. We're very good at that psychological warfare. Last year we ran an ad of Donald Trump walking down a ramp. Some bitch still talks about it to this very minute. So, but moving forward into 22, you're going to see that's going to be a very big battleground. And so you just had a peek behind the curtain there, folks. All right, let us move on. As July 4th approaches, we here at The Breakdown are thinking about two of our favorite things, our country and our pets. We'd love to see your patriotic pets. Tweet us your pets in their patriotic outfits, and they may just be featured on our July 6th show. Be sure to hashtag Ask the Breakdown. Well, folks, it has been a great show. Thank you for allowing me to be here unsupervised, except for the large collection of dogs, just about enough to make a hunting pack. And I appreciate all of you for your support and your love. Subscribe to Listen to Lincoln Project Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, on demand and anytime. Tune in tomorrow for the latest episode of We're Speaking. They got some Schmidt action, I'm told. And we're going to have a very special episode of The Breakdown Thursday at 8 p.m. The best of the Breakdown guests. Don't miss it, and have a great night, everybody. Thank you so much for watching, and enjoy yourself a Pim's Cup.